Guess who won the most races in the 2025 Formula 1 season? That's right, it was Max Verstappen. He won 8, where title rivals Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri only won 7 in the fastest package. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for Verstappen to win the title. That honour went to Norris, but Max did make a huge impression to the world with his performances throughout the season. See, he won a bunch of races that were nearly impossible to win, given the issues the Red Bull package had. So that's why I'm making this video again, just like the last 2 seasons. Here are 3 races that Max Verstappen should not have won in 2025. It feels like forever ago when the season had just started. This Grand Prix used to be later in the year, but they moved it forward into the season to make sure the weather wouldn't ruin things. As you can tell by the wonderful footage, I'm talking about the Japanese Grand Prix. At this stage of the season, it was pretty clear the title fight would be between the 2 McLaren drivers. The MCL39 was a trustworthy beast of a car compared to the flaky RB21 that Max Verstappen had at his disposal. Now, I want to start with the race itself, even if that wasn't really where Verstappen won the race, as weird as that may sound. The Suzuka racing course has been the stage for many exciting important races, but this one wasn't one of them. Verstappen started on pole, more about that later, with Norris and Piastri right behind him. Nothing happened after the start, and the only memorable thing that happened was Verstappen and Norris pitting together, Norris driving like an idiot onto the grass, and then blaming Verstappen for pushing him off. Norris said, "He forced me off." Will Joseph replied, "We're on it." Norris was being incredibly silly here, as Verstappen was in the fast lane and Lando just stuck around there with nowhere to go but behind Max. But he didn't and nearly crashed himself out. "What an idiot," Verstappen said. "He drove himself into the grass." To which GP replied, "Yeah, we know the games, as you are." So that was that. But Norris had more to say. "He saw me alongside, I was easily alongside." And again, Willie didn't correct him, but just encouraged this stupid behaviour. It's very cringeworthy, to be honest. Anyway, Norris did stay close to Verstappen, but couldn't launch an attack. And Piastri was faster than both Norris and Verstappen, but wasn't allowed to go for it. He did ask if Norris could speed up, or if he was allowed to have a go. But obviously he wasn't. He was secretly the second driver all along. So Verstappen won this race, and it made everyone in Japan very happy, especially the people from Honda. Koji Watanabe said, "I am very happy and grateful for his victory at this circuit. His last within our partnership with Red Bull." Verstappen received staggering amounts of praise for his display in Japan, having pushed the troublesome RB21 over its limits. But the win was forced a day earlier in qualifying, in a lap that Sky Sports F1 pundit Karun Chandak labelled as one of the greatest qualifying laps in F1 history. The race called the lap spectacularly great even by Verstappen standards, because he had a suboptimal car, but he drove with such incredible precision through the high commitment sections, Spoon and the S's, that he left his McLaren competitors behind. The overall consensus was that this was a masterful shock pole, often described as glorious, incredible or stunning, that showcased Verstappen's exceptional talent in single lap pace, turning a difficult weekend into a highlight. So it's safe to say the Japanese Grand Prix was a race that Max Verstappen should not have won. Max Verstappen had a tough season in 2025, but for some reason he did very well in the country that hosts 2 races. This is a race he won in 3 previous years as well. In fact, this race was in the video I made last season too. The race is the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Imola. The weekend started with Max Verstappen banging his wheel in frustration during a free practice session. It was one of those Fridays where they were way off. The data was sent to Milton Keynes, where they worked to find solutions, and they did. Verstappen managed to get onto the front row during the quali and only had to let Piastri in front. Oscar Piastri was in great form in that part of the season, and it looked like he would snatch the title, as Norris was not in great form. He started from P4 with Russell in between the two McLarens. Now we're getting to the move that won overtake of the season by the F1 organization and the action of the year by the FIA. Verstappen didn't have the best start. In fact, Piastri and Russell got away better. But Piastri stayed to the left to cover Russell, which frustrated the English chap and allowed Verstappen to brake way later than anyone else on the clean part of the track, and Verstappen swooped past the stunned Australian. David Coulthard, in his commentary box, said that he just experienced an out-of-body experience. That's how good the move was. The rest of the race was pretty uneventful for Verstappen. McLaren took more of the attention with a few weird decisions. First, they pitted Piastri way too early and the stop was slow, so he had to overtake a bunch of cars. Then they pitted Norris right before Ocon had an issue with his car, so Verstappen could pit during a virtual safety car. Verstappen had a dominant pace in the clean air, which made him pretty much invisible all race, and then Antonelli DNF'd everyone into the pits except Piastri, and the race restarted with Verstappen in the lead and Piastri in P2 on old hards. Norris had an easy job to overtake his unlucky teammate, but Jolyon Palmer still called it a brilliant overtake. Alright mate, Verstappen cruised to a victory in Red Bull's 400th race. Now, why do I consider this a race he should not have won, I hear you wonder. Well, in this last season of the ground effect era, the cars were so far developed that they produced massive amounts of dirty air again. If Verstappen hadn't made that move and was stuck behind Piastri for a while, or even had to fight George Russell for P2, he would not have won this race. It was his bravery on lap 1, braking so incredibly late and not going off track or making contact with Piastri that put him in the lead, which offered him the chance for this dominant win. In my book, this is a race he should not have won. On to the last one, and an honourable mention of a race he didn't win, so stay tuned. The third race is the one Max Verstappen won at the Temple of Speed, Monza. And Max did have amazing speed that weekend. He set the pole in a new record time, and he won the race as the fastest race ever recorded, with the fastest race lap ever. It just shows how well these cars are developed, that they were fastest ever. This will all change next season, but that's a topic for another video. Norris started in P2 and Piastri in P3. Norris had a slightly better start than Max, and Lando was pretty feisty. He did what Verstappen is hated for. He let go of his brake to win the corner and forced Verstappen off track. Verstappen stayed in the lead but was told to hand the position to Norris, which he did. It was clear pretty quickly after that the RB21 in the hands of Max was faster than Norris, so Verstappen overtook Norris in the turn 1 turn 2 combination and he was in the lead again. As with many races this season, the guy leading the race has the clean air and Verstappen had blistering pace. He pitted from the lead in lap 38 while the McLarens waited, hoping for a safety car. That didn't happen, so McLaren pitted late to go to softs. Now, I don't want to talk about the papaya cars too much, but Norris offered to let Piastri pit first, which was a nice 1.9 second pit stop. Then Lando pitted, and it was a 5.6 second pit stop, and Oscar had undercut Lando by accident. The McLaren pit wall told Piastri to give the position back, and Piastri reluctantly did what he was told. Verstappen was told about this, and he laughed about it on the radio. That was the last highlight of the race concerning Verstappen. He won the race dominantly. No risk, full push, he said to GP over the radio, who congratulated him on the Italian double that season. Now, why was this race so special? Well, this win was seen as the starting point of Red Bull's mid to late season improvement in 2025, with upgrades and a shifted approach to car setup and relying more on Verstappen's feedback, helping turn around their form after a challenging start to the year. Verstappen pushed for Red Bull to keep upgrading and not giving up. From Monza onwards, Verstappen was exceptional. He finished on the podium in every remaining race, a streak of 10 Grand Prix. He won several more times, including back-to-back Monza and Baku, plus later highlights like Austin and Qatar, and mounted a dramatic comeback from a 104-point deficit after the summer break. He ultimately fell just short of a 5th consecutive driver's title, finishing second to Lando Norris by a 2-point margin in the Abu Dhabi final. Despite the late surge, McLaren's overall package proved superior, securing both the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championships comfortably. Red Bull's efforts were praised as a remarkable recovery, with Verstappen himself calling the turnaround more important than winning the title, in some interviews highlighting the team's persistence in development. In Monza, Red Bull introduced a new floor, and they fixed the drag issues that made the car a monster last season. It was the start of a new setup philosophy, where Mekis and the boys started relying on feedback from the drivers more than simulation tools. This season was a lot more fun as a Max fan, because he could show off his greatness even more. For instance, in Brazil, he went from the pit lane to a P3 podium. This race obviously didn't fit in this video, as it's about the races Verstappen won, but it deserved an honourable mention. Do you think there's another race that Max Verstappen won in 2025 that would have fit in this video better? Let me know in the comments. Also, please subscribe. I'm almost at 5k subscribers. You could be the one. Take care now. Doei doei.